Welcome to EGN Leadership Conversations, the untold secrets of the C-suite. I will be speaking with industry leaders on hot and trending topics. Enjoy the podcast. Today we have with us Tim Gray. He's a supply chain solutions expert and managing director with Profit Systems. Tim is with us today to talk about improving supply chains by using metrics that matters. A warm welcome to you, Tim. How are you today?
Wonderful. Thank you, Nick, for asking.
That's great. Would you like to just start by introducing yourselves to the listeners?
Certainly. Thank you. I'm the founder of Profit Systems. I'm also the designer of the Profit suite of supply chain management tools. And I'm the creator of a program called the Profit Impact System for supply chain improvement.
All right, fantastic. I'm looking forward to hearing more about this today. And then the topic, it could perhaps sound quite broad to the listeners, improving supply chains by using metrics that matters. What it's all about, Tim?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's probably best summed up by we need to have visibility of the cost and consequences of every decision point in our supply chain. And probably the best analogy I can give is most financial metrics and ERP systems have us looking in the revision mirror, looking at what happened and forensically accounting for how much money we spent or what our inventory is now. And what we need to do to really take control of our supply chain and our future is, in fact, to raise our line of sight and look ahead and see what the costs and consequences are of what we're about to do or what we are doing now.
Right. And could you perhaps take us a little bit deeper and mention what would be the three key things that the listeners should be aware about when it comes to improving supply chains by using metrics?
Yeah, for sure. So this possibly the easiest way to explain this is if you just let me explain we talk to a supply chain maturity in a number of levels, and businesses that are really struggling. Often we find from a supply chain maturity they're in chaos, and when they're thinking about what to do, it's all about what now, what's going to happen to me now, or what's just happened. And so their line of sight is all about just looking very myopic about what's now. In businesses that are a little bit more mature, and a lot of businesses fall into this area, we call them reacting. They're level 2, and they're thinking about what's next. They're looking at their order book, and so they've got a little bit of foresight, but mainly they've got a schedule, and perhaps they've got a dispatch plan for what they're going to do today and tomorrow, but they're not looking out past the current order book. And then the next level, and what for a lot of businesses has been good enough, they're level 3 planning. They're actually planning to serve. And so at that point, they're actually starting to look further out. They've got a forecast, and they can see what their customers might want, and they're planning to serve. And so, like I said, a lot of businesses, this has been good enough. But there's a higher level above that, but until recently, most businesses haven't worried about. But more and more, we're seeing a need to get into the optimized or dominate space, level 4. And the problem with level 3 businesses is, although they've started to raise their line of sight, they can look ahead and see what their customers want. If you're planning to serve, but you can't see the cost to serve, it's as if you're going to serve my customers at any cost. And most of our clients simply do not have enough margin to be able to serve their customers at any cost. So more and more we're seeing, and particularly with some of the volatility in supply chain recently, the ability to be able to serve your customers at the best possible cost has become paramount. And that requires not just foresight in terms of being able to see what your customers need, but you also need to have the same forward visibility about what is my distribution going to cost? What if I hold stock here, or alternative of if I can get more expensive material but on a shorter lead time, is that a better choice for me? And being able to see these costs and consequences of these choice immediately and transparently allows you to not just plan to serve, but really navigate the supply terrain so that you can satisfy your customers at the best possible cost. And that transition through those maturities is the difference between businesses looking in the revision mirror and slowly, gradually lifting their line of sight, and then finally and fully getting to raise their line of sight, and all decisions are made forward-looking so they can build up a complete picture of what it's going to mean to their business and their customers and their cost to serve.
Right, and you touched here, Tim, on cost saving, cost efficiency, and so on. Budgets perhaps are more scrutinized than ever before. There's also more things we need to spend money on. I've had previous some leaders here on the show talking about diversity and inclusion. They're also talking about the need for allocating budget to sustainability and so on.
Yeah.
Why should then companies spend resources on this, to use metrics that matter and so on? Can you give us some enlightenment here, and why should we bother about this?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and you're absolutely right. There's a lot of competing attention and need. But I think possibly the best explanation has been recently we've seen, companies have been wrestling with, particularly with COVID, we've seen what happens when there's disruption in supply. And a common theme has been we've run out of inventory when supply was lumpy. So we've gone and started getting material at any cost to keep your manufacturing or your sites running, your customers satisfied. And now with economic problems ahead, we're seeing that the sustained spend of the last couple of years has started suddenly and dramatically dried up. And now a lot of businesses that we're working with or starting to work with have seen they're out of cash flow. And because they've got so much inventory now to buffer against the shipping and the availability of materials, they're actually swimming in inventory. Warehouses are overloaded. They're short on cash because they've got too much stock. And this situation while it's understandable how it's occurred, it's happened because we've been making decisions without the right insights. And if you don't have cash flow, you can't really afford to go in and find ethical supply lines or other more sustainable avenues unless they fit within your cash constraints. And to me, it's regardless of how ethically or sustainably you want your supply chain to be, you must first be able to understand the flow requirements, and when you're purchasing, you must see not just what the price is, but also how long is that going to sit on the shelf for, and how long am I buffered for? When will I need to next order? And unless you can see all these things while you're making decisions, you won't make the right choices, regardless of whether it's regardless of the other boxes that you're ticking in terms of supply chain considerations.
Right, and you mentioned here that perhaps they're oversupply, but I also hear at the same time equal amounts of people are telling me that they undersupply, that they cannot get enough stock. I'm just back from KL now. We had some meeting with manufacturers there earlier this week, and they're saying they just cannot get supply. So it goes both ways, and this comes back then to forecasting, I guess. Tim, what's your take on this? It goes both ways here, right?
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right. The bullwhip is still occurring. So while in some areas you've got massive oversupply now, but that's in response to they reacted early and reserved capacity, and other places were a little bit more cautious. Again, they weren't running with enough foresight, and now the music stopped. There's no chairs left, so they're still struggling to get material. Their response, unfortunately, eventually will be to buy too much. And we need that foresight to see what we truly need and when, and what other choices we've got to navigate. One of the things that McKinsey's recently released a study, which I found fascinating. They were suggesting that only 25% of manufacturers are using tools to plan. 75% of manufacturers are still planning on spreadsheet. And I know there's some very, very good people who can make impressive spreadsheets, but you cannot integrate and marshal the energies of your whole team, from purchasers, from supply planning, demand planning, and everyone in between, and manufacturing and so on Excel. You just can't keep everyone integrated and working with clarity and conviction. And so having the right tools in place and having the right transparency through your organization is part of, and end-to-end visibility is part of this, having the right foundation so you can start showing what the costs and consequences are all the way through your supply chain. There really is no other way of getting out of this, the lumpy supply that you just referred to, and the stockouts that occur or the overstocks that occur, unless you can see what your true demand, what your current coverage looks like in terms of time coverage, and you can see the cost and consequences of what happens if I just buy another week's worth of stock and then wait and see, or what happens if I buy 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 8 weeks. And if you can see the consequences for your supply chain, then you can start modeling and managing for it. And you still need to take that risk assessment, but you're doing it informed and fully informed. what happens in almost all cases at the moment in businesses that don't have the right metrics and don't have that forward visibility is that they leave poor people in the corner who are responsible for making sure they don't run out of stock. And they're just told to make sure you don't run out of stock, and they get their bums kicked if they run out of stock. But no one tells them, that, hey, you've ordered too much, or by the way, we've changed, we're not using that material anymore, we're using something else. And it's kind of people being allocated the responsibility of keeping the lines running or the customers satisfied without visibility, without the ownership and the transparency of the other interacting issues, is a recipe for failure. And they're going to continually get caught out or be overstocked with the wrong products if we don't give them the tools and visibility to be able to manage their scope.
Well, indeed, Tim, I can see this picture clearly. I mean, there's so much uncertainties out there now. There's recessions, perhaps depressions around the corners. There's wars. We don't know where they're going to turn. There's turmoil at every single corner. So, yeah, working with spreadsheets doesn't really make the cut, does it? And I can start to understand here what you're talking about. It can really lead to a competitive edge for a company, can it not?
It really can. And it's interesting. Some clients, particularly early in COVID, and some inquiries we had where people were telling me, we can't possibly budget. Who could budget in this environment? And I was pulling my hair out when I heard that. I had to take a deep breath and explain, no. The more uncertain it is, the more urgent it is that you budget and get everyone or get a consensus going. And if you're unsure, if you're driving, at night, you wouldn't turn your lights off because you don't have complete visibility. I want all the lights on I can, and I want to look more frequently out the windscreen. Yeah, we even if we're forecasting in volatile times, we must forecast more frequently, do our best, and understand it's going to be wrong, but doing our best guess and refining it regularly and rapidly, and by exception, is far more potent than driving blind. It's absolutely essential that we get our business into a rhythm of forecasting, not just the demand. That's a important first pass, but also the capacity, crew, supply, and all the way down the supply chain, up and down the supply chain, so you can have the fastest access to the best information that you can get. And this is really imperative, and it's a business process that's not intuitive to a lot of people. But the successful clients that are navigating these tumultuous times are doing exactly that. They're they're not overworking their forecast, but they're doing them rapidly and frequently.
Right, and we're coming here to the end today, Tim, but it's very, very interesting topic. And I want to just ask you, what would it mean to a business if they could serve their customers seamlessly at the best possible cost? How would this then affect the business for them?
Yeah, the notion of serving your customers seamlessly is just so far different to what most people as manufacturing or distribution businesses realize, and it's we liken it to your ability to exhale after a hard day at work. You say, the ability to know you've got the right stock in the right place, and if you've got issues, you know which ones they are, and you're managing those. But being ahead of the game, seeing what's happening before you run customers out, and talking to them about issues that you might have, and navigating with them. Most customers are very, very amenable. If you can tell them early, we've got supply issues. No customer likes it when you ring up after you've missed the second delivery that you promised they were going to get something, and you have to tell them, no, we still don't have it. Being able to see into the future and predict and communicate around that, you can normally manage your customers. And that's then the few exceptions where you do have problems, you'll normally find a way through with your customers because everyone's in the same boat. We all understand what disrupted supply chains are like. And I think we've all had a rude shock of some of the good times that we had in the past. So what we've seen is that our customers who have really embraced this agile and frequent planning and with the ability to see into the future, they have absolutely dominated their marketplace. We're seeing significant market share switching to customers that previously may have charged more money for their products or for other reasons they didn't have market share. We're finding that service level that they're able to offer is guaranteeing them volume, and they're able to kind of pick and choose which clients they want because some of their competitors just aren't able to supply. So it's a very opportunistic time. If you can keep your customers and if you can keep your supply chain running by looking ahead and navigating the terrain, and keep your customers seamlessly satisfied, you actually get to choose in this current environment, you get to choose which customers you want and at what margin you're going to satisfy them, and really test some of the previous assumptions. So for us, we've seen it's an absolute recipe for success if you've got your supply chain running well, or if you quickly run to get your supply chain well. For those that aren't, there may not be much of a business left.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Tim. It's been very interesting to have you on the show today. And if the listeners want to continue this conversation with you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
They're welcome to hit up our website at profitsystems.com, or email me at consult@profitsystems.com. Profit is spelled P-R-O-P-H-I-T. It's not a spelling mistake. My wife is convinced it is, but it's a combination of prophecy and making money. When you can see into the future, you can manage your future and make more money. So,
fantastic. Thank you so much, Tim, for being with us today. So for all the listeners, Tim Gray is a supply chain solutions expert and managing director with Profit Systems. And he's been talking to us about improving supply chains by using metrics that matters. Thanks again, Tim, and have a great rest of the day.
Pleasure. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for listening to EGN Leadership Conversations, the untold secret of the C-suite.